This is James Caperton. I'm at the NASTC Annual Conference in downtown Nashville, and I'm joined by our friend Kevin Rutherford. Hey, Kevin, how are you doing?
Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. So we've been grabbing people and asking them questions and stuff, talking to them about their experience with NASTC. Why don't we start with like what your history and your relationship is with NASTC, because I think it's a really cool story.
I love that story. So my job and my mission has always been to help owner-operators live their best life.
Yeah.
Help make more money, be healthier, be more profitable, have more time at home because they can do that. So I was always looking for solutions for them that would really matter, really impact their bottom line. And early on when I was doing this, and I was big on fuel mileage, because it's their biggest cost.
It's their biggest cost.
And it's the one they have the most control over.
Sure.
I thought the only control they had was the truck and the fuel mileage itself.
Yeah,
so I focused on that. And then one day I remember getting a call, and one of my owner-operators said, "Hey, what about fuel cost? You know, should I have a discount card?" And I said, "Well, you know, you can get some cards out there. It's 3 cents off here. So you should if you can." And then somebody else called and said, "Have you seen the NASTC card?" And I said, "Who?"
Yeah.
And he said, "NASTC." And I said, "I don't even know who that is. How could I not know who this is? I know everybody in the industry." And he said, and even back then, he was like, "There's 30, 40, 50 cent discounts." I said, "No, there's not."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, there is." And I said, "Look, big fleets don't get those kind of discounts."
Sure.
And I said, that can't be right. So I said, "I'll go check." And before I could even go check, I got 4 more calls. "No, he's right. Here's how it works. It's a cost plus." And at the time, I didn't even know what cost plus was.
Yeah.
So I went and researched it, and sure enough, I'm like, I don't know how they could do this.
Sure.
But I got to tell everybody about this.
Yeah.
And I never thought about reaching out to NASTC itself. It was just, I verified it, it worked. So when people would call and I'd be helping them, I'd say, "You got to get the NASTC card. You got to get the card. There's so much money here to be saved."
Sure.
And then I did finally decide to reach out. Dave and I ran into each other at the truck show, Mid-America, a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago. And we kind of talked about, are there some things we could do together? And at the time, one truck operations they didn't really fit your model sometimes.
Sure.
But I said, if you can get the fuel card, get it.
Yeah.
And we almost felt like somehow we might even be competing against each other.
Yeah.
So we can be friends, and I'll keep sending people to you, but we didn't see any synergy. And then I actually reached out once. We had our big 5-day event, which was our CMC.
Okay.
And I knew of Dave's Nest class. And I said, "Any chance you could do your Nest class at our CMC sometime?" And the dates just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the last time we talked. And I just kept sending people to NASTC because it was such a great program. And, you know, just a couple of years ago, here was the phone call. It's exactly how it went. Picked up the phone, I said, "This is Kevin." And he said, "This is Dave and Owen at NASTC." And I knew right away who it was.
Sure.
And his next sentence was, "I owe you a bunch of money." And I, "Look, am I being punked here?" I said, "I don't remember sending you an invoice."
Yeah.
And he said, "No," he said, "You know, we finally realized." We went back and we looked, and he said, "We don't think there's any other channel where we've gotten more members than you, and yet you've never asked for a single thing." And he says, I feel like I owe you." And he says, "It's time to start paying you back."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I think there's a lot of things we could be doing together now."
Yeah.
And in some ways, we talked about the fact that his sweet spot had been getting smaller over the years.
It had. Yep.
Just because of market dynamics.
Sure.
Really. And my tribe had, when I would help somebody really optimize that one truck operation and become profitable,
they were getting bigger.
They were getting bigger.
Yeah.
And we kind of almost grew together to the point where we weren't really competing at anything.
Sure.
That I had some education and some courses and some programs that really helped them, but NASTC had all of the tools to do those things I was telling them they need to do.
Sure.
You need to get your fuel costs under control. You need to get a good safety program in place to protect yourself. You need to have good insurance at a good cost.
Yeah.
And you need to get your authority right.
Yeah.
Everything I was telling them to do, you guys could do for them, and I could trust that it was all done right.
So if you were talking to a carrier, like you talk to them all the time, and they're on the fence, they're like, we looked at the NASTC thing, The fuel's great, but we're not really sure about the association as a whole. If you had to kind of boil it down, and I know that you kind of have touched on some of this, but if you had to boil it down into a sentence or two as to what would be the reasons that you would encourage a carrier like that to join NASTC, what would they be?
I would say this. I get this question a lot. They feel frustrated and they'll ask me, how can we possibly compete against big carriers when they get their trucks at a discount, they get their fuel at a discount, they get their insurance cheaper than we can do it? And my answer is, you're asking the wrong question. You shouldn't be trying to compete with them in their model. You should build a model that they can't compete against. And the way you do that is you join NASTC and you get many of those advantages you just said they have and you don't.
Yeah, and you still have the heart and soul of a small trucking company.
You get to run like a small trucking company and go provide maximum value to your customers that they can never do.
Yeah.
You go haul the freight that they're terrified to go touch because they can't send their inexperienced drivers in for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And yet you can get their advantages through NASTC.
Yeah.
They can never get your advantages.
Yeah. No,
so the question should be, how could they ever compete against you?
Sure. So now I know over the years you probably attend a lot of conferences, a lot of different trucking related stuff. How would you say the NASTC conference is different than a lot of the other trucking related conferences and stuff that you've attended in the past?
It's practical and real world, and you're going to apply what you find here and what you learn here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And here's the thing I see even at something like Matt's. You walk around, there's 100,000 vendors or whatever that number is, and you pick up a bunch of papers and you stuff them in your bag and you say, I'm going to check on this later, and then you can't figure out what it is when you get home and you throw it away and you go on with what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
And here, everything here is practical.
Yep.
It's real world. You can apply it today sometimes, and you could certainly apply it tomorrow when you go home. And there's a lot to absorb, but it's easier to absorb. It's focused, and it's real world advice.
Yeah, and personal relationships too.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Then the networking. I mean, this is just 3 years for me, but I feel like I'm at home when I come here now.
No, that's
I'm so
nice.
excited to see
great.
everybody and the NASTC team and the people who keep coming back. You know, I just realized last night the small carrier of the year. I've been here 3 years.
Yeah.
All 3 years now, at least one of the 4 companies has come up to me and said, thank you for fuel gauges and your advice, and that's how we
That's
got
so cool.
here. And every year there's been at least one of the 4.
You know, I think you're probably like me. Like, it means a lot to me when you're helping a small trucking company and you see that you made a positive impact on them. And that's, I mean, if they're up for an award, that's about as good of a feedback as you could get, right?
That's fantastic.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we look forward to many more years of having you here, okay?
Thank you.
All right, awesome.